you had read the entire paper, all you would have to do was to sit down and at the end, when you hear the words, "Welcome to the plenary," to yell, "I can read well." Thank you very much. So my name is Nadina Nikolic. I'm a teacher of English, and in 2019, I was a Fulbright grantee at Kent State University, Ohio, the USA, and it was the first media literacy cohort. And welcome now to this controversial thing. Maybe you'll be shocked during this session, because we will focus on smart people and, of course, fake news. And I will start with a question. Again, pay attention and be very quick, because I have prepared some prizes for you. Do you think, no, these are for real this time. Do you think that the idea of believing fake news is new? If you do, please show me your hand.
If we do believe.
Yeah. Nobody? Nobody thinks that the idea is new? Okay. Actually, it is. And you'll see why. Do you believe it's not new? Show me your hand. Yeah, and I have a winner. The first winner of the day. You were the quickest one. So here is a poster. Yeah, you were the first one. So, those of you who believe that this idea is not new, you're also right. What about the ones who are somehow undecided? What about the ones who say it may be new, it may not be new? What do you think? Yeah, and we have a winner here as well. It's another poster related to media literacy. Thank you very much. So it may be. Let's see if you were right or wrong. What you see on the screen, and we'll discuss a little bit about it in a few moments, is the very first of fake print which came into the printing years ago. More exactly, about 300 years ago, more exactly in the 18th century. And the problem is, why? Why did people at the time, why do people at present come up with fake news? At the time, so we speak about 300 years ago, we speak about the 18th century, we can say that people were superstitious. We can say that they were naive, or they were fanatic. The best example comes from the English artist William Hogarth, who came up with this satirical print, more exactly in 1762. And it's called, as you can see, Credulity, Superstition, and Fanaticism, a Medley. And his intention was to ridicule something. It was about religion. If you have a closer look at it, that's exactly how it appeared in the media of the time. You can see the background, which seems to be a church full of people, believers, and a woman lying on the floor. And maybe because she was not a true believer, as people at the time used to think about it, she was giving birth, but not to a child, not to a baby, but actually to live rabbits. This piece of satire came out in print, and it was made on purpose, so that to fool people, to make them believe and somehow to frighten them that unless they are the true believers, something like this will happen and they will be punished. What about us? Because What you saw dates back to 300 years ago. So what about us? Are we different now? And has the situation changed? If it has, how much? And in what way? And what is different? Why do things happen? Why do educated or at least partially educated people believe fake news? Let's see. And during the next moments, we'll discuss about fake news and us in the 21st century, in the post-pandemic world, and let's see what's changed, let's see what is different. I'm sure that each of us have been exposed at least once to fake news. The problem is why? Why is everything invaded? Why is everything flooded by fake news? The answer is very simple, because we have access to social media. Whatever we do, whatever we have on us, we are exposed to social media. We carry it with us everywhere. And what we actually do, we read. I'm not sure we read everything, and we had a very clear example earlier when you had a piece of paper and many of you started doing everything that was written here without actually first reading it. And that's what happens with fake news. We start reading and we believe. We have our own opinion, we have our own idea about it, and we believe everything that's there. And you'll see later on a very clear example. You may know it, you may not know it, but it's a real one. And the problem is that we not only read and believe, but we also share. Because if something catches our attention, it may be a headline, it may be a picture, it may be something, we get a general idea and we say, I'm interested in it, that's important, the others may know it as well. Of course, there are multi-pertinent answers why things like this happen. Some of them are very simple. Some others are extremely complicated, and there have been scientists for years who study this phenomena of fake news and everything it means, at least in our world today. For instance, in one of the books he wrote recently, I won't tell you the name of the book because I don't want to shock you, Rob Furner concluded that so the main idea, the main conclusion of the author is that smart people or intelligent people believe sophisticated fake news. And I prepared some very good examples. The first one is related to 9/11 and everything that surrounds it. Though it happens 20 years ago, there are people who still come up with conspiracy theories, and there are people who still believe that these ideas expressed in the conspiracy theories are true. Another one, which happened years ago, is related to the man landing on the moon, and is the same thing. Even now, there are people who doubt the fact that the man was able to step on the moon. And a very recent one is this one, the Flat Earth Society. And you know it very well because there are people who think we don't live on a round planet, but our planet is flat. And they try to come up with arguments and they try to convince us. And unfortunately, there are people who still believe this is true. What are the reasons behind all these? First of all, is the lack of actual knowledge that we all have. Because we read and we draw our own conclusions. We make our own image, our own picture, and we believe in it. And another reason is the overestimation of knowledge. Because we think we know a lot. Actually, you'll see what we know. And again, I prepared some examples for you. There is an organization, an international one, it's called IPSOS, and every year they come up with an idea and they survey people from different countries in the world, not only in Europe. One example that I prepared for you today, for instance, the question was, they asked people to rank the country which consumes most alcohol per person. As you can see, Russia was seen by most people who took part in the survey as the booziest country. In reality, Russia is only on the 7th place. Belgium is the first one, and very few people were able to identify Belgium as the country which consumes most alcohol. Another example is related to some funny news which are attributed to the European Union. Some of them are true, some of them exist, some others are false. And the children, the law with children over the age of, under the age of 12, to use a booster seat in the car was the winner with, you can see the percentage there. And on the second place is the fake law related to bandy bananas, which should be not allowed in the European Union. And you can see how many people believed this law really exists in the European Union. Another example is related to the Muslim population. And they asked people in different countries how many Muslim people they think they live in their country. And as you can see, the winner is France, because they overestimated the number of Muslims that live in their country. In reality, things are totally different. And finally, another example is related to the question about how happy they think they are. And the answers, the result, the findings are actually surprising, simply because this time they underestimated. And every country thinks that people are much less happy than they say they are. If you want to check, this year they had a survey on climate change. You can go to the address, you'll have the presentation at the end, so when the session is over, so you'll have access to it, and you can access the source and go there and see what really happens. What are the reasons behind all this? One explanation would be the so-called explanatory text. And there is a book written by Rosenbild and Kiel. It was published in 2002. It's called The Illusion of Explanatory Text. And this quotation was taken from the book. And it is a good explanation for believing fake news and for overestimating. What they did, how did they reach this conclusion? They took more exactly 3 steps. They had a number of people, and what they did was to ask them to rate how well they understand how things work. For example, they asked them to rate how well they understand, for instance, a sewing machine, a cell phone, or a bike. The next step, they asked people who took part in the study to describe how the artifact works. So first they had simply to rate, then to describe in detail how the artifact works, and finally to re-rate their understanding of the artifact. And do you think that things improved? No. Actually, the self-knowledge dropped dramatically from one step to the others, and people were unable to explain how the artifact really works. They took their idea even further, and they asked people to speak about ideas from the scientific fields or from the mental illnesses, and also from the economic markets, and so on, and so on, and so on. And as an example of how people think things work, you'll see some drawings which people made during the second phase, so during the description, and you will see what an ordinary bike looks like according to what they think. If all these ideas would be taken into account, and if people would decide to make a bike according to what the others described, the bike would actually look like this. So we think we overestimate, and we think we know how things work. In reality, we don't. And here is another quotation that I really liked. It's taken from the book I'm in Now by Steven Pinker. And what I liked about it is because it explains very clearly what actually happens. We have the cognitive faculties, but they are no longer, they couldn't keep up with the development of society. And society means the invasion of technology and everything it means. So we used to think about the old society that they were not as developed as ours, but actually our cognitive abilities, our cognitive faculties are a perfect match for those society. We try to adapt to the present one, but we are not always good at doing it. And who is to blame? Who is to blame for the believing the fake news? First of all, creating the fake news, and then we believe it. And we have the hoaxer, and we all know them. We also have the deceiver, the conman, the demagogue, as we call it, or the pseudo-scientist, and there are plenty of examples. I'm sure you came across many of them. What do they do and how do they do it? First of all, they imagine something, which in general may contain a grain of truth, but in general is something fake. What they create lives up to our expectations because they know exactly who we are and what characterizes us. And for this, they take into account some key elements, I would say. For instance, our lack of attention. We live in a busy world, and we say we don't have time to pay attention to everything, and they take into account our lack of attention. Also the group pressure, or the greediness, and let's not forget about the lure of fame. What do? are we simply spectators to this? As a matter of fact, we don't. And we have our intuition, our self-deception, which is also important in the equation, our unreliable memories, because we don't remember exactly how it happened, when it happened. We have some memories, but they are not to be believed. They are not reliable. And also the patterns. All the time we look for patterns. As a matter of fact, we are seeking patterns and we are compulsive in doing so. And the founder of the Skeptic Society, Michael Shemer, came with this idea. Okay, so we are good at telling stories. We have a memory, we have something, and we are very good at telling stories. And for these telling stories, I have something very special. Can you tell me what is it? It's a stone, right. I would like to sell it to you. This is my stone. It's very nice. Look at its color. If you look very closely, you'll see it has some red lines in it. It may be granite. Do you offer me, let's say, 50 cents for it?
Make it work.
Yeah, I have 50 cents. What about $1? Come on, look at this stone. It's perfect. Nobody? No, it's real. You can see it's very heavy. It's very heavy. Yeah, please. No. Okay. What if I'd tell you that these stones comes from a Roman castrum? And what if I tell you that this stone, which I want to sell, will help me give again to that place the former splendor? Because that place is in ruins now, and if I sell many stones taken from there, I can help people to bring it back to life. Would you offer $5 for it, knowing this story?
Fake news.
You don't know if it's fake news or not, because this stone is from that special place, and you can see it's real.
Yeah, but the story beyond the date is told by you. Okay, so I can't take for granted something I can't check.
Yeah, that's what we do actually. If I'd have started by telling you that this stone comes from a Roman castrum and it has a special history and it is more than 2,000 years old, and if I sell many stones like this, I can have enough money to restore it, I'm sure you'd have given me more money. But I started with telling you that this is an ordinary stone, even if it looks very nice. It's ordinary and I want to sell it. So this is why we are good at telling stories. And right now I remember what the famous Romanian actor Gheorghe Timică in Philantropica said.
Spune o poveste, nu primește nimic.
Exact, mâna întinsă care nu spune o poveste nu primește pomană, spunea actorul. Și într-adevăr, we are good at telling stories, at believing stories, and sometimes it doesn't matter if they are true or false. Okay, what else? Another explanation why we believe everything or almost everything we see. I don't know if you've ever heard about this effect. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And its definition is a very simple one. It's based on our overestimation. We overestimate what we know and what we are good at doing. This Dunning-Kruger effect looks like this. And as you can see, if my competence is 0, my confidence is very high. If I know nothing, I'm extremely confident. The moment I want to learn about that field, or the moment I start to develop my abilities, and my competence is average, I understand that I know nothing. If I become an expert in the field, I understand and I know what my limitations are. But my self-confidence, so I'm an expert in the field, but my self-confidence will not equal the confidence, the level of confidence I had when I knew nothing in the field. And here we have the cause and effect, because we, in general, ignore what we see, what we hear, or what we read. And you know it very well, the moment we are in face of the disagreement, we don't listen to the arguments. Or if I listen to the arguments, I'm sure there is somebody in front of me who fights against my ideas, simply because they disagree with them, they don't try to understand, they don't listen, and they feel like fighting against it. And the result of all this is that good intended people become Don Quixotes. Even if my intention is very good, the moment I face such a person, I fight against the windmills. So, the conclusion is that the less I know, the more confident I am. And now, because I promised you an example, before the pandemic in Romania, I remember that one night I received this message on Messenger at first. And then I received it by email, I received it by WhatsApp and all the platforms I was connected to. The problem was not that I received this message, but the problem was that it was sent to me and to others as well by educated and partially educated people. And I said, oh my God, why does it happen? What's wrong with these people? And let's examine it just a little bit. This message has some key elements in it. First of all, it's an official announcement because it has the name of the authority, it has a number, and it has a date. But then, it has some words being meant to be an official announcement. These words in Romanian are there. All of them are connected to coronavirus. So it was very serious and fatal, no cures, and you'll see how it sounds in Romanian. There are plenty of exclamation marks in it. And I can tell you that the more exclamation marks I have in a piece of writing, the less professional I am, and my piece of writing is. And of course it has some spelling mistakes. I'll explain it to you immediately. And what I consider to be the icing on the cake is the end of the message. So again, what does it have? If you look, what I underlined with green is the authority, which is the Ministry of Health. It has a number and it has a date. It's the 22nd of February, 2020. But then, everything that's written there is fabricated, is not real. And you can see, foarte grav și fatal. And what I liked very much was, nu mai există leacuri. And think about who is mentioned in the very first line is the Ministry of Health, of Public Health. So that was the moment I realized this is a piece of fake news. And then there are many, many other things. There is a spelling mistakes. Odată ce sunteți infectați, odată is not written in the right word. And then we have nici o clipă. We know how nicio is written in Romanian. And for instance, in the second half, it's also on red. I did nothing to it, but my proofreading in Word underlined it because they don't recognize these words. For instance, if you look at the word lămâi, it's not spelled as it should have. And please have a look at the end of the message, which I really loved, those hands in prayers. And don't forget, it comes from the Ministry of Health. Yeah. This is an example. Maybe you received it, right? Have you received it? No? Oh, you're so lucky.
I received it and from psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was the example. And I tell you again that I received it from educated and partially educated people, so smart people. Why do they believe it?
Because they didn't read it carefully.
Yeah.
So they read it as we have done first,
Yeah.
with our piece of paper, you know.
That's so right. So the conclusion, and here I would like to remind you about my biggest inspiration, I must admit and confess. His name was Steve Jobs, and he said, stay hungry, stay foolish. I would say, stay hungry, I mean, go to the source, find out more, and stay alert. What questions do you have related to everything you heard? And I hope I didn't shock you too much. So now it's the question time. Because we still have time.